Hey guys, welcome to Monday's edition of Full Count. I'm Jeff Michaels, or some of you may know me better as JM Sports, but I'll be your host for today. Do I have some amazing deals to get this show started off with over on SportsMemo? The people back there behind the scenes, they've come up with continuous amazing ways to get you guys the best cappers, but also get those winning picks for the best prices around and plenty of opportunities to capitalize on those. You got them scrolling across the bottom, but today we got all the packages up there for just $9. We're still running 50% off all packages over $25 for the rest of the month. And I have to give a special shout out to that $2 Tuesday tomorrow, or you get 3 cappers for just that $5. You're going to get King Creole. You're getting Matt Joseph's college football futures pick, and you're getting myself. I got a big MLB play lined up for you, but there's a lot in store for you, and there's plenty of good opportunities for you to be able to take advantage of that for cheap. But let's talk about today's MLB action. I'm lucky enough to be joined by 2 common faces on that SportsMemo leaderboard, Ronald Cabang and Dr. Chuck, who currently sits number 3 in the last 7 days, and he ranks in both the WNBA leaderboards in the last 7 and 30 days. But happy Monday, guys. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Dr. Chuck, welcome to you. How are you this afternoon?
Pretty good. Good to be here, guys. Hopefully we start a nice new week. I had a decent baseball week going, and it kind of came crashing down over the weekend. But we were pretty successful with our WNBA and specifically PGA, which we've been diving into this summer. And so all access, that's what we always talk about.
Yeah, that's how you wrap it all up at once, right? Ronald, how are you, sir?
Man, I just enjoy the weekends because I get to spend a lot more time with my kids and my family. We always talk about sports. We talk about sports betting, but we all have lives outside of this. And the weekends I just enjoy the most. Real quick, I took my kids to go play Pokemon Go. There was a Pokemon Go festival in Seattle this weekend. We took them there, and I almost had a whole 14 hours without my phone because they had my phone the whole time. And just not having my phone, not looking at Twitter, not looking at sports and all that stuff, it's really refreshing. So just a reminder, there's life outside of this stuff, and go enjoy it.
And it's funny, I can preach the same way to it, but my world kind of came together. We spent yesterday, I took 2 of the boys actually out to Pittsburgh to go see a Pirates game. So it was a day away from work, but we still obviously enjoyed some baseball. And funny enough, it's about a 2-hour ride there, a 2-hour ride back. And all 4 of those were spent catching Pokemon along the way. So you don't have to be at a festival for the Pokemon Go, apparently. But guys, fun. Glad we enjoyed the weekend. I was right there with you too. But hey, plenty of baseball action for tonight. Start off those roundtable games, and game 1 kicks off with Tampa Bay sitting as a favorite against Baltimore. They're minus 120 with a total at 8.5. But the first matchup comes out of the best division in baseball, and the AL East may be separated by 18 games, but 2nd through 5th is just 5.5 games apart. Baltimore's in last place, but their 47-48 record is still impressive by their standards. And today they host Tampa Bay, who's 52-43 on the year and currently 5 games ahead of the Orioles. Baltimore puts their 26-19 home record on the line with Austin Voth. He's had limited starts, but he has put up some success for the team. And Tampa Bay is coming off back-to-back losses against Kansas City, but they sent Corey Kluber to the mound in an effort to turn things around, who's been pretty impressive at home and in his starts against Baltimore specifically. But hey, these guys will break it down a little bit more for you. Ronald, do you want to get things going?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking, like you mentioned, Kluber and Voth here. This matchup actually happened last month in Baltimore. The Orioles ended up winning that game 2-1 as underdogs. The Rays closed as I think minus 155 faves that game. This game today, they opened as minus 150 faves and is steamed down to minus 120, like you mentioned. I personally agree with the movement here, the line movement. Orioles have won 6 of their last 7 games as home dogs against starting right-handed pitchers, averaging close to 5.5 runs in those games while allowing under 3.5 runs in those games. So, and 2 of those games were with Voth on the mound. The game I mentioned earlier, the 2-1 game. And then the other one was against the Rangers, which was actually a 10-9 game, a 10-9 win. A lot of runs actually came after the 5th inning in that one. The Orioles were up 4-3 in the first 5 innings. After the first 5 innings, Voth so far this season 3-0 straight up at home. Just a 3-game sample size, like you said. We don't have a lot of data on him, but there, a 3-game sample size here at home. Orioles are backing him with some good run support, especially in the last 2 games. Where they put up 10 and 9 respectively. Kluber, he's faced the Orioles 4 times already this season. Rays are 2-2 in those games, but 0-2 when he's the road favorite in the matchup. They lost to Spencer Watkins 6-7, and again that same game earlier 2-1 loss to Voth. With all that said, I'm looking towards the Orioles here, the money line. I think it's like you said, the Orioles they have a record where you put them in a different division, you could probably see them, with a much, much better record here. So, yeah, I think we're seeing some value here. We lost some initially from the opening line, but I think we still can get some good value here on the Orioles.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, you said it. It's hard to find a division in baseball that has 3 teams over 500, let alone almost 5 when you look at Baltimore in 5th place, just 1 game behind that 500 mark. But Doctor, what do you got to order on this one?
Yeah, and I kind of pushed back a little bit last month when Joe and others were saying, maybe the Orioles, if they were in a different division, could be even winning that division. And I didn't think you just expect, like you said, AL East, normally you would expect 19 times they have to play each other, they're going to start cannibalizing, and it's not happening. It's impressive because when they're splitting series with each other in the division, they still go outside and win, which is what's interesting about the Rays struggling with the Royals over the weekend. But a couple of the points that Ron brought up, I mean, just kick April out of there because they still did kind of look like those Orioles in April. But since May, 24 times they've been home dogs, 17-7 they've covered on the run line. Inside the division, 14 times they're 11-3. But more to the point of maybe runs or maybe even team total runs, if you think they can get to Kluber, a little bit better than when that 2-1 game when these two did face off last month. 15, 8-1 to the over in those games, and 8-5-1 inside the division. I can't imagine not being on the Orioles in some way. It's not ideal considering what we've been able to get in the past to lay $150 or maybe even worse to get a home run line because run lines a lot of times you think you're getting plus money, but Jesse Shule will talk about it, and a lot of guys will talk about it. Minus 150 is not a lot in baseball because you don't pay juice on a winner. I wouldn't be on the Rays really in any capacity here. I think looking at the Orioles money line, if you wanted to be safer, run line especially at home, if you can get that 9th at bat in the 9th inning and maybe even come back there. Team total over Orioles, you're probably going to get a 3.5, and it's probably going to be pretty solidly juiced. You might even get over 3.5 at plus 110 or something like that. I think they're all worth a solid look here. But yeah, I mean, hard not to be continually impressed by this team day by day. I don't know the exact numbers of what they won in like 17 or 18, but I think they're like a week away from eclipsing that total for the entire season. So impressive work. And yeah, I hope Hyde is getting serious consideration, even though it's going to be easy to give it to like a Boone or somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Baltimore's they've won 8 out of their last, they're 8-2 in their last 10 after a loss by 5 or more runs too, after that blowout against the Yankees. And, Tampa Bay struggled in the division, but it caught my attention and surprised me that you look at their history in the first game of the series. Tampa Bay is 4-8 in the first game against the division, and they're 3-11 in the last 14 series in the first game on the road. So they haven't been able to start off this series either. So I can't find myself disagreeing with you guys on those points for sure. But game 2, head off to a non-divisional matchup. Kansas City and Los Angeles, the Angels playoff. And last time I checked, they were even money with a total at 8. Mm-hmm. And second round table game, that 40-55 LA Angels travel to Kansas City. They take on a 38-57 Royals team. Both these teams find themselves in 4th place in their respective divisions, which is surprising at this point for one of those two teams. But Los Angeles started the year as one of the favorites, and through 45 games, they were 27-18 and very competitive in their division. But since May 25th, they're just 13-38, which includes a 3-14 record thus far in July. Pitching matchup includes two well-known names. LA sends Syndergaard to the mound. It was once a franchise ace for the Mets. And he's 5-7 this year with a 4.00 ERA, but on the road, he's definitely struggled. And Kansas City's got Zach Greinke at the helm today. He's in a similar boat as Syndergaard, statistically a little behind in his numbers, but there must be something magic about putting Zach Greinke back in Kauffman Stadium with his numbers that he's put up at home. Kansas City's off back-to-back wins against that Tampa Bay team that we talked about in the last one, and they win the 3-game series out of the All-Star break. But does their 25-43 record against right-hand pitchers outweigh a 6-30 record of the Angels as a dog of 100 or more this season? Ronald, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this one here, the Angels and Royals, we got, like you mentioned, Syndergaard and Greinke on the mound for these two. Real quick, shout out to everyone in the chat as well. We got Jesse, who's normally on the show as well. He's in there in the chat. But back to the game, yeah. To me, this matchup here, both of these teams really been struggling offensively this season in these specific spots. Angels versus righties on the road, batting just 202, averaging under 3.4 runs per game. Royals at home versus righties, batting close to 250, but not really turning those hits into runs, averaging just 3.4 runs per game in those spots too. So combined 6.8 runs per game here in those spots. Total opened up at 8.5 and now down to 8. So I agree with the line movement here on the under. And you mentioned Greinke at home. He's been amazing, sporting an ERA under 2 in those spots. The Royals 5-2 straight up when Greinke starts at home. Opponents are averaging just under 1.6 runs per game in those spots, which leads to a 6-0-1 record to the under as well with Greinke at home. Both on the full game and the first 5. The Angels just 1-5 straight up on the road when Syndergaard starts on the road. As a record on the record, 3-2-1 to the under. But if you're looking at the number of runs that they're putting up, just 2.2 runs per game in those spots, and the opponents are averaging 4.33 per game. So as a whole, if we're just doing like average runs combined, you're still towards the under in that one. I was really looking at this one in multiple ways. To like team total under on the Angels side, full game under, money line on the Royals side. And to me, I think the best way to look at it from my perspective is probably to just support the Royals on the money line here. I wouldn't be mad at anyone taking the under or the team total under, because you can get the team total under on the Angels side at plus money. But yeah, for me, I would probably recommend just taking the Royals money line here.
Yeah, I find that hard to argue with, but let's see if Dr. Chuck, you got anything to argue with on that one?
No, there's not a lot to argue. It's hard to believe some of the stats that this Anaheim team is putting up. It's grotesque. I have a feeling I know Jesse's pumped to hear what we're going to say about the Mariners, and I think that's Ron's team as well. So I'm sure he takes plenty of pleasure in the Angels just being a dumpster fire. You brought up the 6-30. I was going to talk about how in the last 25 times the Angels have been hung as a dog, they have 3 outright wins. I mean, it's hard to back a team that, Ron talks about being away from his phone. I was away from my phone for a while as well. And so a lot of things pop up. And one of the top things on MLB news is, are the Angels going to trade Ohtani? And if that's even a conversation piece, what kind of season is this? And, I read a lot into like lines like Ron said, the Royals are the Royals. Everyone knows what the Royals are. This isn't 2015, even though we're talking about Kluber and Thor and Greinke. This is not a Royals team that could win the World Series. This is just a regular old bottom of the barrel MLB team from 2022, and they're favored. And they're favored over a team that, like Jeff said, was thought to be a contender for playoffs and things like that. I like the Royals on the first 5 just because I don't love their bullpen. It hasn't been as bad as all season, but the Angels still have a lineup. Sal is still out for the Royals, which is not a plus, but they still have plenty of guys with wit. the two-headed monster there. And so if you and I'm never opposed, like Ron said, tackle a bunch of different ways to go for an under. I'm never opposed to taking an Angels under total runs because it's always too much. Which, if you get that hook on the 3.5, that's a solid look too, because it's hard to imagine that Greinke's going to struggle. No way. Similar to not really wanting to be on the Rays in any way. I don't really want to be on the Angels in any way. Hopefully that doesn't mean you should just parlay the money line on both those two teams because we're jinxing it all. But yeah, if a team like the Royals is favored, I'm finding a way to back them because that means Vegas wants you to bet the Angels.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Either one of you want to chime in on it, but I was looking back. Do you think the Angels at this point have any regret to getting rid of Joe Madden? I mean, they're 13-25 since he was fired. They're 6-13 on the road, 9-21 in night games since David took over, 7-17 against the division, and yesterday was their first win since July 13th.
Well, I don't want to jump the gun on Ron here, but speaking of which, we talked last week. One of my follow-up questions to Kevin was, back in the Blue Jays, they look better. It's funny that Kevin and I picked the Blue Jays on the same day that they put up 4 touchdowns. But yeah, I mean, could there be a bigger dichotomy from firing Girardi and how that went and firing Montoya and how that went versus Madden? I think the Blue Jays have more wins in the past 10 days than the Angels do since firing Madden or something along those lines. So it makes you wonder if they have any regret because obviously Phil Nevin's not the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Ronald, got anything to
add?
I
mean, I think what it tells them is that the manager wasn't the problem. I think they're just not putting themselves in position to win from a batting perspective. That their lineup really is focused on just a couple people, and maybe they got to look down to their key prospects and see who can they bring up to bring some energy into this lineup here to bring some run support. So that's my take on it. I just feel like they got to shake it up a little bit and see what they can do. They keep sticking with what they have. It's not going to change anything, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to ignore what they have on that roster, but it's been something special in a bad way. But Game 3, as you guys said, we got a couple people that looking forward to this Mariners game, but they're currently, as I saw, a favorite at -140 against Texas and a total of 8.5 in this one. But the ALS matchup sets up 2 of the top 3 teams in the division. Third place, 43-51 Texas Rangers team traveled to take on Seattle, and the second place Mariners, who have a 51-45 record this season. Now, could it be the opportunity for Texas to make up a little bit of ground? Seattle was without question the hottest team going into the All-Star break, winning 14 straight games. But to start the second half of the year, they got swept by Houston, allowing double the amount of runs that they put up in that series, getting outscored 16-8. Texas is off a big win. Their offense showed that they could put up, but their bullpen obviously struggled to say the least after they got rid of Perez. An 11-1 lead turned into a nerve-wracking 11-8 win. But Texas puts Glenn Otto on the mound today. His 5.40 ERA and 4.4-6 record this season. ZRA has been noticeably better in his road starts, but Seattle's got Chris Flexen on the mound tonight, 6-8 on the season with a 3.79 ERA. And Flexen's thrown some of his best starts in the season in his recent outings, including one against Texas, but where Flexen's allowed just 2 earned runs in 16.1 innings pitched in his last 3 starts. And Seattle took the win in all 3 of those outings. So let's see. Cabang, you got to be close to the action. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I mean, right now, like you mentioned, they're not, the Mariners aren't starting off the second half of the season well at all. I mean, you got to look at the matchup as well as just Julio Rodriguez not being able to play to start off the second half of the season as well. So once he gets back into the lineup, hopefully things get back to normal. And also, just Houston is just a pretty dominant team in general. So I think it might be just a little misleading going into this matchup here, and the Rangers coming off of a win. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, but for me, we've seen this matchup just last week, I believe, Flexen versus Otto. Mariners won that game 6-2, with how the Mariners are playing right now, I'm really just more focused on the total, right? Because we want to just cash. We don't want to be, as big of a fan I am for the Mariners. I want to make some money. So for me, I'm looking towards the total here, which is actually towards the under. Flexen, he's been a solid under pitcher this season, especially at home. He's just not getting a lot of run support in those spots, and that's why the Mariners are 5-2 to the under full game when he starts. The Mariners are scoring 3.3 runs per game. Opponents are averaging 3.6 per game in those spots. And we have Glenn Otto, who is 4-1-1 to the under on the road all season long, including 3-0-1 to the under as road dogs this season, averaging a combined 7 runs in those games. From a batting perspective, the Rangers are pretty much averaging over a run less against righties on the road than they do against lefties. So a lot of the things to me are pointing towards the under here. That's the way that I'm gonna look on this one.
Yeah, Dr. Chet, before I got one question for you, Ronald, on a follow-up. I was watching that Texas game a little closer than I normally do yesterday because I had a big play on it. But does it put any thought in your mind? I know Texas isn't a team that puts up a lot of runs normally, and I know Paul Blackburn isn't exactly a Cy Young caliber pitcher, but he is one of the best pitchers coming out of that Oakland, lineup. The amount of runs that they put up on a Paul Blackburn, does that add any concern going against Flexen today?
No, we saw Paul Blackburn really dominate the beginning of the year, but he's kind of going in the wrong direction as far as current form. He's been struggling a lot lately. So to me, I think it's just a little combination of Blackburn kind of struggling and the Rangers just picking they were just in the right spot at the right time as far as being able to take advantage of someone who's been struggling the last few starts. So, and like I said earlier too, from a season long perspective, just how the Rangers hit against righties on the road, this is a spot where you don't want to back them, where they're putting up basically less runs per game than they do against lefties on the road. So a lot of things to me just really focus towards the full game total as a whole, combined with the Mariners' struggles on as far as offense goes too.
Gotcha. Absolutely. It makes sense. Sorry, Dr. Che. He made the Chris Flexen comment. I wanted to throw it out there, but what do you got to add to this one for us here that may help?
I suppose, I don't know if this is why people tune into the show, but at least you're going to get a little bit of what maybe you want to see, and then a little bit from me and Jeff later. But I would be on the over. I obviously would open at 8. I want to get the 8 if you can get that. I don't think there's any 8s out there. I think they're all 8.5s now. Both these guys just faced off, and obviously that total would not get you over the 8.5 when they just faced off. But I looked more into the metrics, and Otto's FIP compared to his 4 ERA was almost 8, and Flexen's was almost 3 times his ERA. He only gave up 1 earned run, but he had a nearly 6 FIP. I don't love it. I think that if you were on that 8 and you had some solid looks, Jeff brought it up. There was no reason for the Rangers to do what they did in those first 2 games against the Athletics. It was kind of grotesque. They went to Miami, hammered them, and then just couldn't get the bats going at all in those first 2 games. And then it exploded yesterday, as well as the bullpen is pretty hideous. And so, it isn't even one of those where I'd be putting everything on that over full game, but maybe even, if Otto can get this through this a little bit more effectively, no Julio, I made that comment on Twitter about when the next time Scott Service is going to let that guy bat in the home run derby is 15 years from now. But under first 5, over full game, maybe even if you like that kind of stuff. The FIP situation isn't an all or nothing. You can't do only that. But I liked what the Rangers did finishing off that series. There's a not much easier, but it's still worse offense in Oakland as it is compared to Seattle. It's not the biggest jump. You're not leaving Oakland and going to Colorado or Pittsburgh or something like that. But if I had to make a play on this, I would probably go something with the Mariners or the over on this. I mean, it's tricky too because the Mariners, after losing those 3 games, no Julio, how do they respond after those 3 wins they kind of needed? It's a lesser opponent coming in, even though they are right behind them in the division. So tough to back them there as well. But if I had to do something, I would probably see if you can get 9 runs out of this.
Hey, sometimes runs are the best thing to do, and it's hard when these teams have been up and down like that, especially how high Seattle was. So, but without any further ado, guys, I know a lot of people come here for that best bet section, but we'll give these guys a second to talk about what they got over on the premium site too. I know you just heard from Dr. Chuck that in the last one, but we're gonna go over to him first and get him to kick it off. With the best bet segment for today.
Yeah, so we have lots of baseball. We have a 10 unit play on $9 Monday at SportsMemo today. So if you haven't gotten it, get over there. The value is still pretty solid on it. It isn't exactly what it would have been if you'd gotten it last night when we posted, but it's still pretty good. And I would definitely still go farther even than what it is now. So great value to get. We are 12-5 all time with 10 unit plays in baseball. And so off of a loss with our last 10 unit play last month. So looking to bounce back on that. And we are really hammering in and sharpening up on our tennis systems. And there's WTA and ATP both as we head towards the US Open. And we're really looking towards that. But this is for baseball. And so we're looking tonight, and I'm an unbelievable broken record here, although it'll maybe be fun with Jeff and some banter back and forth on this game. But yeah, not a pitching matchup I like at all in the D-backs Giants game, but tried to fade Tyler Gilbert last week, and he was unstoppable somehow. And Jacob Junis on the other bump. We're kind of looking at a similar situation where the Mariners are looking, what are we going to be in the second half? And they come out and they lose all 3 games to the Astros, and the Giants kind of did the same thing. And so in a similar vein to why I think the Mariners would be the way to go, I'm sticking with the Giants tonight. Again, yes, it was the Dodgers, but still you're on the road and a decent sized favorite. Again, a team that doesn't get a lot of public attention with a starter that they know they don't recognize as one of their top tier guys. So I would be on the Giants. I don't think they hammer the D-backs by any means. I don't think this is the get the bats out and crush them off of the Dodgers series, but I really like them to win and maybe, get a few more of the lower tier NL West wins going here as the season continues.
Hey, I won't say more than I'll give you guys a break from the San Francisco-Arizona game for a minute and let Ronald jump in the middle here and give you his best bet for the day and tell you what he's got coming up for you.
Yeah, as far as what I have on the premium side, this is typically about the time that I post my premium plays. So I should probably, after this, I'll probably have 2 or 3 premium plays on the MLB side. And then as far as the best bet for today's show, I want to go with the Royals here on the money line. To me, it's just 2 teams going in opposite directions as far as how the pitchers are doing. Right, we mentioned Greinke at home and how well he does, and then how Syndergaard struggles on the road. To me, I'm looking at like a sort of like a 4-2 type of game here for the Royals. It's always hard to back a Royals team, like I think maybe it was Dr. Chuck who mentioned it. When you see a team who's not often a favorite, it's kind of like it's something that you got to look into and figure out why. And when I dove into this game, I figured I've seen a lot of things supporting the Royals here, and when you don't see that often, sometimes it's kind of a tricky way to read the lines. But that's the way that I'm going with this one. Royals on the money line, -110. You're not laying a lot of juice here. So yeah, that's the way that I'm going with that one.
I like it. And yeah, guys, when it comes to, my best bet today, I will say thank you to everybody that was on this big weekend with me after 5% winner on Saturday and a big 10% winner yesterday. Ended up taking the #1 spot on SportsMemo in the last 30 days. But as I mentioned before, the deals continue tomorrow. Check out $2 Tuesday tomorrow, or get 3 cappers for $5 with myself, King Creole, and get Matt Joseph as well. And I do have my MLB best bet loaded tonight on the premium site. But when it comes to my best bet for today's show, I am going back to that Arizona game against San Francisco, and I'm actually looking at Arizona on the run line. So I'm not totally opposed to Dr. Chuck's play. They can win by that 1 run. But Tyler Gilbert takes the mound, 7th start this season, and it is similar. Dr. Chuck said it, he compared it to that Mariners game. I'm going to compare this one a little more to the Baltimore game that, I do like that Baltimore, you take the run line, and Tyler Gilbert, like I said, 7th start, he's got a 5.59 ERA on the year, but the team's 5-1 on the run line in his 6 starts in those. At home, he's only started 2 games, but he's got a .96 ERA. And dating back to last season, the team's won 6 of his last 7 starts on the run line, including 3 straight wins. Arizona hasn't been stellar on their basic splits when it comes to the run line, but they're over 500 in almost every stat that you would look at, or every split that you would look at, at home against right-handed pitchers, turf, at night against the division. But they have won 11 out of the last 16 on the run line, 8 out of the last 11, and 4 out of the last 5, putting up nearly 7 runs a game since the All-Star break and allowing just over 2 in the 3-game series against Washington. And they've won 4 out of the 6 games against San Francisco on the run line this year. Meanwhile, that San Fran team's just 30-20 on the run line against the division this season. And they're just 2-5 in the last 7 games, including 4 straight losses out of the All-Star break, hitting .225. One of the biggest struggles for the Giants have been winning as a favorite on the run line. They're 11-21 in the last 32 against teams under 500, including 2-8 in the last 10 against divisional opponents under 500. And they're 2-10 in the last 11 as a favorite in the first game of the series. So, I do agree with Dr. Chuck that it's going to be a close one. I think, like I said, maybe San Fran gets the 1-run win, but I think Arizona's going to cover the run line too. So got a little bit of excitement going on tonight. 3rd round table game, best bets. We got to keep you guys on your toes, but hey, good reasons for all of them. And there's still ways to cash in on both, but guys, like we said before, I do want to say thank you to Dr. Chuck and Ronald for joining us too. Shout out to Kyle for running the behind the scenes for us too. But plenty of good deals, guys, tonight and in the upcoming days on SportsMemo for you guys to take advantage of. And thank you guys for joining us as well. And good luck for your Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.